Host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. I have to start with this latest element here, at least 4 more drone attacks. It certainly seems whatever message the U.S. is trying to send is not being delivered, is not being received.
And Nicole, you and I keep talking about this, and it keeps on going on this way. And we see with these basically pinprick responses, it's not only not going to stop them, it actually seems to encourage them more because they gauge this as not any kind of a deterrent strike because they expect that kind of response. And I think what you may be seeing is that they actually want to draw the U.S. into this war. They want the U.S. to attack Israel. I'm sorry, to attack Iran, because then that could cause other ripple effects that are in the favor of the of basically drawing two separate, a distinct line between the Arab world and the Western world. And that's what they seek to do, which is why it's absolutely imperative that we not do that. The issue is not let's strike harder against these groups in Syria. The issue is let's get our troops out so that they're not just sitting ducks waiting to be attacked by these. I mean, you saw 50 that you just talked about there, 56 injuries. How long do we have to go before one is eventually killed pointlessly?
And Colonel, so let's get back to the fact that, the U.S. had conducted more airstrikes, the third since October 26th. We heard the statement from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin there during Kelly's report, basically saying, the U.S. will not hesitate to do what's necessary. What do you think that means at this point, seeing what we're seeing?
You got to see it the same way probably our adversaries are seeing it, is they're saying this is just little small strikes that don't deter them from anything. I mean, if you needed any more proof of that, the fact that these come literally hours after our so-called strong strikes, the message is not getting through. That's not going to stop them. They're going to keep going until they kill an American because they have an interest in spreading the war, whereas we have an interest in preventing it. So it's not going to protect us by sending in more, strikes against Syria or whatever. And you see also, it's not been reported much today, but there have been 5 strikes into Syria by the Israeli forces. So that whole area is starting to heat up, and all of that is a dangerous possibility of escalation.
All right, so you say that, sending in more strikes doesn't seem to be deterring them, as we see a response just a few hours later. We know right now there are a few thousand U.S. troops in Iraq. Right now there are less than 1,000 in Syria. Do we need to send in a stronger presence in both countries?
No, the exact opposite. That's the last thing we need to do. We need to withdraw from the area. Nicole, if our troops were there providing some sort of valuable service for our country, if we needed them there for our own national security, then it might be reasonable to talk about that. But the opposite is true. They're nothing but a strategic vulnerability for our country. Because I can't reiterate this enough. As soon as one of them is killed, and now it's almost a matter of time, then we're going to be compelled to take even stronger countermeasures. And that's where you get up the escalation ladder. And no one knows where that's going to end, but it could very well end in a starting of a new war. And that is the last thing in America's interest. We need to protect our troops by getting them out of the crosshairs of our opponents.
And as you said, obviously we don't want it to happen, but it does seem at this point that it is almost inevitable that at some point, a U.S. service member is going to be killed. Can these increasing tensions be ratcheted down at this point? Because we see this, back and forth, within hours. I mean, is an expanded regional conflict looking more likely? Maybe not inevitable, but at least looking more likely.
Without question, it's looking more likely because of those Israeli airstrikes into Syria, our airstrikes into Syria, the continuing escalation on the border with Hezbollah. All of these things are showing that the tensions are rising, and we have to do something to tamp them down. And the only thing we can do right now is to get our troops off the battlefield, off that battlefield where they're not helping us. Because you just said there's been 50-something since October 17th. So that shows you there's no issue, no intent for those violent groups to slow down their attacks. They're just going to keep going until they succeed.